Hello everyone, it's your host, your friend, your boy, Jet Black, the one and only, here with another exciting video. I've been asked, what are my thoughts on Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters, James Gunn's brand new DCU movie slate. I've already watched this video, I watched it 2 days ago, but I did not share my thoughts with you guys, so I decided, hey, why not re-watch the video with you guys so that you guys can see my reactions to the specific things he said. Also, because I watched this video 2 days ago, I don't want to leave any information out, which is why I'm going to be playing the video in the background. I will be pausing it on occasion to share my thoughts with you all, but let us all get things started.
Hey everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know, DC has been disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the character...
So the concept of them connecting everything through film, television, animation, and video games is a cool concept indeed. I've been wanting superhero movies in general to become more connected in that way. Marvel already is kind of doing that, except for games. I don't think any of the Marvel games tie directly into things going on in the MCU, but they have their Disney Plus shows that connect directly to the movies, and they have What If in terms of animation that then is connected to the greater Marvel multiverse and the story that they're telling. And I hope that they do more in animation that connects to everything else, but we'll see if Marvel decides to do that or not. I'm excited to see DC going in that direction. I feel like a lot of Japanese tokusatsu superheroes already kind of do stuff like this. For example, Kamen Rider. The Kamen Rider show will have movies that feature the same actors from the show. And it's all one continuity between the Kamen Rider show and the Kamen Rider movie. So to see DC move in that direction is a positive change in my opinion, but let's continue.
Characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of...
Now, he's talking about the idea of them labeling certain things as being not a part of the greater DC continuity by giving them an Elseworlds label. I think that's a good idea, but I feel like as the video goes on, you'll see that he kind of fails to make that distinction clear. There will be certain projects where he'll specifically say, hey, this isn't a part of it, like what he just did with the Matt Reeves Batman movie, the Joker movie, and the Teen Titans Go series. He's they're all Elseworlds, right? But when he starts going over the slate, he isn't as specific on, okay, this is DCU, this is Elseworlds, this is DCU, this is Elseworlds. And some of the projects kind of sound like that could be Elseworlds, but I don't know. So I kind of wish that as he went over each one, it was clearly marked as either this is DCU or this is Elseworlds. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Of the mainstream DCU continuity. Now, Peter and I have gotten pretty lucky in terms of the 4 projects that are coming out over the next year. First, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic...
Now, real quick, one thing that I want to say is that his language can be confusing. So didn't you hear how he said Shazam has always kind of been in his own part of the DCU? That makes it sound like, oh, this is a whole other thing, right? You kind of cast it to the side in terms of continuity. But then he says it connects very well and moves directly into The Flash, which feels weird to say. It's it's two kind of opposite statements. It's weird to talk about how Shazam is normally in his own pocket, but then also talk about how Shazam connects. Now, of course, Shazam connects to The Flash. We already knew that Shazam was deeply tied into the Snyderverse. The Shazam movie has multiple references to the other films and characters that have been in the Snyderverse, so it's not really that confusing. We already know that Shazam isn't necessarily a part of the new DCU. I just think he'll continue to use language like that throughout. Like, even after we get past these films that we know obviously aren't a part of the new DCU. But let's continue. He's jumping into comments on the Flash movie.
Fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe. Then to move into Blue...
So, real quick, before we get into his thoughts on Blue Beetle, he was gassing up The Flash, talking about how it's such a good movie, and he says that it's going to essentially act as, like, the reboot, the kicking off point for the new DCU. Now, what's interesting about this is that we already knew that the Flash movie was going to be like a reboot, reset kind of thing. I've heard a lot of people react to this statement as if it's like the first clarification that we had that the Flash film was going to be a reboot, and that is simply disingenuous. I've already made a YouTube short, I did it like forever ago, talking about how we've known for literal years that the Flash movie was going to act as a reboot, reset. So this is not new news. If you hear anyone saying that it is new news, just do like a quick Google search and you will very quickly find that like the director of the Flash movie has already declared that that's the whole point of the movie, is that it's like a reboot thing. But carrying forward, I guess before I carry forward and press play, so notice that he talks about the Flash movie and then he goes directly into talking about the Blue Beetle movie. I really don't know where Blue Beetle fits in. I want us all to pay close attention to what he's about to say and see if he explains how it fits or not. I'm very excited for the Blue Beetle movie. I think the costume looks great. Blue Beetle, I think, is one of the best like character designs for a superhero, in my opinion. I'm also a big fan of the character Guyver. I think he and Guyver have a lot of aesthetic similarities, so it fits. But I don't know. Like, even though I'm hyped for the Blue Beetle movie, it's interesting that it's coming out after The Flash. And it's also interesting that I don't know if it's, like, really a part of his DCU or not. I know later he's going to say that Superman Legacy is really the start of the DCU. But I guess that doesn't really clarify for real where Blue Beetle is. You know, like, if Flash is the reboot, it makes you think, well, okay, so that's like the end of the old, the beginning of the new. But in reality, it's like Flash sets up the reboot, but it doesn't sound like the thing right after Flash necessarily is in the DCU. I just wish we had more clarification on that. He's about to talk about it. Let's hop in.
Blue Beetle, a fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads to...
See how he's going so fast. He's like, Blue Beetle, fantastic film, and then he's like, and then that leads into Aquaman 2. From what I can understand, I think Blue Beetle and Aquaman 2 are going to be still like pre-DCU projects before we get into the Superman Legacy stuff. But let's keep going.
It's directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now. So, Peter and I, along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is...
Real quick, before he continues, so as you heard, the slate is going to be an 8 to 10 year plan. I think this is very interesting, the way that they're setting this up. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below, but Superman is going to be in the public domain, I believe, in the year 2034. Okay, this slate is set up as long as it's like a 10-year plan, starting, I assume, now. Then that means that this slate is going to end in 2033, meaning it's going to end a year before Superman goes into the public domain. It almost feels like a last hurrah for DC to kind of like go nuts with these characters and one interconnected story across gaming, films, and movies before suddenly there's a grab bag of their characters available for people to use, because not only will Superman enter the public domain in 2034, but also other characters who featured in Action Comics #1 alongside him. But let's continue. That was kind of a tangent.
Is called Gods and Monsters. Now this, what I'm about to tell you, is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter. The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series. I've written all the episodes. Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action. The next project up is Waller. This is the story of Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. Viola Davis is going to team up with members of Team Peacemaker, and this is a story that's been created by Crystal Henry, who did Watchmen, and Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol. It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people to see it. Okay.
I noticed that you keep saying fantastic story. Waller is the confusing one for me. I was surprised when he started with, like, okay, now we're on to the new stuff. Creature Commandos, animated series. Cool, I'll watch it. I'm interested in seeing what they do with the Creature Commandos. I'm curious if it's a period piece, like if it's supposed to take place in the past or not. I don't really know a lot about Creature Commandos. When he jumped into Waller and he's talking about Team Peacemaker, it sounds like it's going to connect with the Peacemaker HBO Max show, but Peacemaker is inside of, like, the current, like, Snyderverse DCEU or whatever. So is Waller like an Elseworlds project? You know, like, I kind of wish with each project he mentioned, if he just said, okay, this is in the DCU, or this is Elseworlds confirmed. He was able to do that with, like, the Batman movie, the Joker movie, and Teen Titans Go with, like, little to no difficulty. But for all these other ones, it feels so vague. And he likes to use the term, like, leads into this, that, or the other. But when he said that, like, Aquaman 2 leads into all these, like, new projects, it's like, what do you mean it leads into these new projects? Like, does that mean that Creature Commandos is in that same continuity with Aquaman 2? You know? I just still think it feels weird. I don't understand how things connect, and I kind of feel like that's the point of the slate, is to know how the things connect.
Hey, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is
So he's like, this is the true beginning of the DCU, is this film, Superman Legacy. So if we take that to heart, that Superman Legacy is the true beginning of the DCU, then we should say that, like, Blue Beetle, Aquaman 2, Creature Commandos, and Waller are all, like, Elseworlds, I guess, is what he's saying, right? I was kind of thinking that Creature Commandos would be in the DCU, because he, like, shows them, and he's like, hey, we're going to do this new thing where we have characters in animation, and then later we move them into live action. It really makes you feel like he's talking about, like, a new thing that's a part of this, like, new chapter. But I think the way that maybe we're supposed to interpret it, like I said, I wish they just literally said whether or not it was or wasn't with, like, text on the screen. Like, this is Elseworlds, this is DCU kind of thing. I just think that would have made it a lot simpler. But based on how I'm choosing to interpret it, based on him saying that Superman Legacy is, like, the true beginning, it makes me think that Creature Commandos, Waller, Aquaman 2, Blue Beetle, which are all projects that are, like, post the Flash reboot film, are still not in the new continuity, and that Superman Legacy is the true start of the new continuity.
It's called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it. And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025. Okay, the next thing is a big premiere HBO television series called Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns.
I shouldn't pause
John
it.
Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other Lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective, with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth. In it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Next is a big...
So, before he jumps into the Authority, which is actually pretty hype, I want to talk about Lanterns. Lanterns is like a non-announcement. So, he earlier was talking about a lot of projects that we'd already heard about, and then he was like, okay, now into the new stuff. Now we're getting into, like, the DCU. Except this Lanterns HBO Max show, if you've been keeping up with superhero news, isn't new news at all. We've known for a long time that they were planning on doing, like, a buddy cop Green Lantern live-action show on HBO Max. and it sounds like that now has been like folded into the new DCU, I guess. I don't know. Again, I wish he has like Elseworlds versus not Elseworlds. I think the way it's being presented, Lanterns is going to be a part of the DCU, but it's not new news, really. We already knew they were making the show. If anything, it's just confirmation that they're like continuing to progress on it, I guess. The fact that it's going to be a very terrestrial show, implying that it's going to be a Green Lantern show, but they're going to be on Earth, they're going to be doing Earth stuff, it's going to be more of like a police procedural with space cops. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but I watched a video literally yesterday talking about Green Lantern the Animated Series and how only 3 of the episodes of that show actually took place on Earth, because it really highlighted how the Green Lanterns patrol like a whole sector of the universe. You know, there's more to the universe than Earth, and it's nice to see the Green Lanterns go on adventures in space and travel to other planets and get to interact with all these different like alien species and stuff. I think the show will be fine, but I wonder how people feel about it being so hyped up as being terrestrial based and them being focused on Precinct Earth rather than patrolling Sector 2814, a whole like chunk of the universe. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. I am torn in that regard. I like that it's about multiple lanterns, though. I think that's a cool idea. Next up, Authority. Authority I'm very hype about.
The big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters. The Authority are a group of superheroes who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series called Paradise Lost.
His transitions, by the way, I think could use work. They could have had like title cards and really divided it up. Because some of it, I think it goes too smoothly into the next thing, but not smoothly in like a way to where you can clearly tell he's going into something else. Smoothly as in, if you're listening wrong, you think he's talking about the same thing he was before. Like, the segues don't work well, is what I'm saying. So I'm excited for The Authority. I think that's actually a really cool idea, and it's probably one of the most hype announcements from the DCU slate. I'm excited to see The Authority interact with all of the heavy hitters of the DCU, and I think he did a good job of establishing that this is indeed a part of the DCU for sure. And I feel like I'm going to have people in the comment section being like, duh, everything that he says after Superman Legacy is in the DCU. But I don't honestly think it's that clear. We'll see more as the video continues. I think it does get a little sloppy.
Paradise Lost is the story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman. It's almost like Game of Thrones with Westeros, but with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island. The introduction of the DCU's Batman is the brave and the bold. The brave.
Before we get too deep into the Batman stuff, haven't heard anyone really talk about Paradise Lost too much. I'm not sure if people are super excited about it or not. Wonder Woman is a character who has been changed a lot over the years. And I know you can say that about really all of these superheroes who have been around for decades and have had many different reimaginings, but I feel like Wonder Woman especially has had a lot of significant changes to her origin story and mythos and power set over the course of the years. A few years ago, I got a Wonder Woman guidebook that was like 200, 300 pages long, thick book, like really big book, like an encyclopedia, and I read it cover to cover the same day. Wonder Woman has a very crazy and varied history. And I think because of that, people who are fans of Wonder Woman are fans of either like the idea of Wonder Woman or they're fans of like a specific era or version of Wonder Woman. But I guess I'm curious to see how Paradise Lost goes. I'll definitely check it out, see what it's about. It doesn't seem like it's going to necessarily be very Wonder Woman centric. If it is, they didn't necessarily highlight that. I believe it's based on a particular Wonder Woman story. Like I said, I read that guidebook years ago, so my Wonder Woman knowledge isn't like super fresh. But I'm curious to see how that adaptation goes. I've just noticed out of all the announcements, Paradise Lost seems like it would be a big deal. Wonder Woman is one of the 3 members of DC's trinity of major heroes. But I've heard more about Superman Legacy from fans and more about Batman, the Brave and the Bold than I have about Paradise Lost. So I just want to put my 2 cents out there. I'm curious at the very least to see what they're going to do with it, especially with the success and then the kind of trickling off of success of the Snyderverse Wonder Woman. A lot of people like the first Wonder Woman movie. I kind of have my problems with it in terms of how it fits into the greater like continuity of the DCEU. I didn't really like that they did like a prequel. And then we ended up getting a Wonder Woman film with Wonder Woman 1984. I was trying to remember the name of it. I was thinking Wonder Woman Gold, but that's just because she has like a gold suit on. And Wonder Woman 1984 is a weird movie. I did like a 2 or 3 hour video where I talked about Wonder Woman 1984. I don't think it's the worst movie in the world. It actually has some interesting stuff in it, but I had a similar issue with it being a prequel. Black Adam having characters who have apparently been around the whole time but haven't been relevant or whatever is also kind of annoying. I don't like it when you establish a universe that seems normal and then you then start to slowly introduce like weirder elements to it, and then you go, well, actually it was never normal, because if you go like years back, there have been characters who were already doing crazy stuff. It makes stuff like Man of Steel not make sense. Like when the aliens invaded in Man of Steel, if Dr. Fate existed and was doing stuff, or Hawkman existed and were doing stuff, then why did they not make themselves known or whatever? It's like a whole thing. Yada yada. Getting off topic. Batman Brave and the Bold.
Brave and the Bold is the story of Batman and his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book run. Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the 2 of them and the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU. Next.
So this has been a little controversial. Some people are afraid that because we're going to get Damian Wayne Robin, that we're not going to get like Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or anything like that. I don't think that's going to be the situation. I think we're going to jump into Batman the Brave and the Bold with all of those past Robins having existed now in their like more modern identities. Like instead of a Dick Grayson Robin, Nightwing will probably just already exist and maybe just be in Bloodhaven. Batgirl will probably already exist either as Batgirl or as Oracle. Red Hood will already exist as Red Hood, not as Robin. And Red Robin will already exist as Red Robin, not as Robin, kind of thing. So that's what I think will be the case. I don't think they're going to like erase those other Bat family members and just have Damian or something. I think the title is weird. I wouldn't have called it Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I get that they're trying to be like, hey, it's Batman and Robin together, the Brave and the Bold, I guess. But I feel like modern connotations of Batman, the Brave and the Bold, you think of a Batman team-up film, where it's like Batman and another mainline hero, not necessarily Batman and Robin. You could have just called it Batman and Robin, but I know that there's already another film called Batman and Robin that people don't like very much. But that didn't stop you guys from making a movie called Suicide Squad and then later making a film called The Suicide Squad. So I don't think, like if you had called it Batman and Robin, I don't think anyone would have been mad at you. If anything, you would be like taking the name back to then try and hopefully make a better film. But that's just me. I'm a big fan of Grant Morrison. The idea that they're going to be taking inspiration from a Grant Morrison storyline involving Batman and Damian Wayne, I'm all for it. I'm interested in seeing what they do with it.
Next up is a TV series called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him. It is basically the superhero story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series. One of my favorite comic book series from last...
No big thoughts on Booster Gold. I'll check it out. I'll check all of these projects out. I'm not gonna avoid any of these like DC releases. Um, it's just Booster Gold is not a character that I like dislike necessarily. He's just not a character that I've ever been like super excited about. So I'll watch it. It's just I don't have much to say on it.
Last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl in this story, she is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing we're going to talk about.
Again, these transitions are so bad. So I'm excited for that Supergirl movie that he was just describing. I might even read that comic storyline that it's going to be based on. It sounds interesting. It just sounds like a good premise. And it's interesting to see that within this greater connected DCU. You know, as long as it is a part of it. Again, I wish they would have clearly labeled it Elseworlds or DCU. But I imagine that it is a part of the greater DCU. And I would love to see how a Supergirl like that would then be incorporated into the greater DCU. To have this jaded Supergirl with a Superman who's had a loving family and see them kind of butt heads, especially in a world where the Authority exists, because we could potentially see Supergirl on the Authority. That could be pretty good, as long as, you know, the Authority doesn't get killed or something at the end of their film. That would be pretty lame.
Talk about a very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway, those...
So, that last line is like the height of my confusion. The big thing that I've been arguing about the whole time. He says that the Swamp Thing movie is outside of the DCU, but will still feed into the stories anyway. What? Like, what does that mean? I don't like the use of, like, leads into, ties together, but is outside. Like, just tell me what's in and what isn't in. I kind of like that Marvel, for their phases, has a graphic. And you can just see, like, oh, okay, this thing is going to lead into this thing, and you can see how the films are kind of like sequentially connected to each other and how the dominoes fall into place. But with this, it's a bunch of projects that are kind of all over the place, and they're all fairly interesting in their own way, but I have no idea how they really connect, and I don't even know if some of them are in continuity or not. It's not even that big of a deal. It's just... You had all month to do this video. Just put in, like, a graphic. It doesn't even have to look that good. That just says, like, this one's Elseworlds, this one's DCU. Just each time he transitions. That's all I want. That's all. If the graphic is out and I'm just stupid and I just haven't seen the graphic, somebody show me the graphic on my Discord, please. I just want to know what's in the DCU and what isn't in the DCU. And is it going to be weird where things that are not in the DCU still connect to the DCU? That's what it sounds like with the Swamp Thing. I have no idea.
Those are the stories that I can tell you about right now. I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different. One of the things that's very important for me in all of these movies and TV series is that the director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us. And I want to be true to those stories. I want to be true to you guys and really give you something different than you've ever seen before. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was exciting for you because it's really exciting for me. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you guys on this grand adventure. Thank you so much.
And I'm excited. Like, I don't want you guys to get the impression that I'm not hype. I don't want you to get the impression that I don't like the slate. I like that the slate kind of touches upon different eras. You know, you're going to have Booster Gold coming from the future. I think Creature Commandos might be taking place in the past. We have a lot of different characters being touched on, like the Trinity, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. But we also have lesser-known characters who are being put into the greater DCU. Again, mentioning like Booster Gold and the Creature Commandos. I think maybe or maybe they're not in the DCU. It wasn't made very clear, and I am confused on that point. Again, my biggest gripe is just I don't understand how things connect, and I don't know what is in the DCU and what isn't in the DCU, and I'm sure that'll be cleared up in the future, but I just feel like that should have been cleared up in this. I feel like that should have been part of the point of it, is to tell us what things connect and what things don't connect. And if they had two graphics or something, and like this one is a chart and it's all of the DCU things, and this one is a chart and it's like all of the Elseworld things, even if you just showed that at the end, I would have been fine with it. But anyways, I'm excited for the slate. I want to understand more about how everything connects. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. And what should my next video be? This video was recommended for me to do by a viewer. So let me know in the comment section below what video I should do next. Thank you for watching. Peace. Check it about.